Hey guys, Simon here, and thanks for stopping in and checking out the video. Today I'm talking about Marvel's Spider-Man for the PS4 and 10 things you don't know about the game. These things can include anything from Easter eggs, trivia, references, or even just a failed marriage proposal. If you guys enjoy the video, do the button thing, subscribe, and leave a comment letting me know what you think. Just a warning ahead of time for some spoilers on number 3. I'll remind you again before I start in on it. Here we go. When you enter the Feast headquarters, there are a few bulletin boards around with flyers of all sorts of things. This specific flyer is asking if you need justice. If so, you should contact Dockmer and Turwalls today and schedule an appointment. This is just a clever little rearranging of letters, however, and once you unravel them, you are left with call Murdock and Walters. This is a reference to Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil, who daylights as a blind attorney and spends his nights taking shots in the face. That's what she said. He has a few other mentions in the game, but it's the other lawyer that is interesting. Walters would be referring to Jessica Walters, better known as She-Hulk. Walters is the cousin of Bruce Banner, the original Hulk, and she gained her powers from him through a blood transfusion after she was shot. She has Hulk's powers but watered down a bit. She is a highly skilled lawyer though and has defended many superheroes and villains, including Spider-Man villain Michael Morbius. Out in Hell's Kitchen by the water, you can find the Stuart Shipping Company. Nothing out of the ordinary, however, Amazing Spider-Man had a huge event this year by crossing the 800th issue mark. It was also with this huge accomplishment that comic artist and writer Stuart Man decided to retire from comics after 20 plus years. For now anyway. He has worked for DC, Image, Top Cow, as well as Marvel on several projects, specifically the Ultimate Universe. Along with this, he has also drawn such characters as Superman, the Hulk, the X-Men, Fantastic Four, and even the Avengers. His artwork has been praised as simple but detailed storytelling, and his ability to render varied subject matter from person to places is beyond amazing. It would seem the developers decided to give Stuart a final goodbye by adding his name to a shipping company as he was on his way out. In one of the collectibles backpacks, you will find a sketch pad with some of Peter's designs for the spider emblem as well as different mask variations. In the middle right hand side of the pad, you can see a mask with just 2 black patches where the eyes are and a line through the mask with the word "Grr" written off to the side. This would be a nod to the Merc with a Mouth, Deadpool. These 2 costumes are similar, so I imagine this is a nod to that, along with the fact that Deadpool is so annoying that he can even get on Spider-Man's nerves. Of course, the webhead would be pissed about Deadpool. In their very first encounter in the 616, Deadpool tossed Peter out of a car trying to get his intended target, who was driving Peter to the Bugle, I believe. In those first few encounters, it was Spider-Man that became the straight shooter instead of his comical self as Deadpool unleashed his wacky attitude on the page. Down the line though, these two found a very comical rhythm. At the very start of the game, you are tasked with going into Fisk Tower to take down the Kingpin. When you first enter his office, you can find him behind his desk validating parking passes. Mob boss shit. What you want to pay attention to in the scene is Fisk's cufflinks. These cufflinks are the same ones used in the Netflix show Daredevil. These specific cufflinks are linked to Wilson Fisk's dark past on the show, which you can see if you watch through the first season of the show. I won't go into detail because it is a spoiler, but rest assured these puppies are a very awesome acknowledgement from the developers of the game. You can better see them once Fisk cracks his knuckles and moves from behind his desk. This little reference comes in the form of one of Peter's medical bills. In the collectibles page, located in one of the many backpacks around the city, you will find a bill from St. Martin Hospital. Pete tells us this was for an injury to his shoulder that healed up. What you want to look for on this piece of paper is the name Dr. Kurt Connors, which can be found under the large amount of cash Peter owes as the referring physician. This piece of info keeps up with Connor's origin of being a surgeon, but then he loses his arm and gets all bitchy about it, and the story basically writes itself from there. Here's the cool bit about this piece of information. In Amazing Spider-Man issue 44, Spidey fights the Lizard, and during the fight, the Lizard swipes his tail right through Spider-Man's webs, causing him to fall and hit the ground hard. As he gets back up, he comments that it hurt really bad and he can't move his left arm at all, which brings us to the acromioclavicle joint that Peter has listed on his bill. This joint is located at the top of the shoulder, and it provides us with the ability to raise our arms above our heads and rotation of the arm. The most common types of injury to this joint are shoulder separations. These types of injuries usually result from collision sports such as football, but the most common mechanism of injury is a fall on the tip of the shoulder, or fush, fall on outstretched hand, which is pretty much exactly what we are looking at in this comic panel. The funny bit is that in this universe, Dr. Connors is treating an injury that his alter persona caused in the 616 universe. A pretty kick-ass roundabout way of cool information. This Easter egg is one I was excited about when I first found it. In Chinatown, down by the water, you can find a building called Heart Clinic. HEART stands for Hospital for Emergency Aid and Recuperative Therapy. To those that don't know any better, this is just a clinic. But to Spider-Man fans, this is a nod to one of his villains, Cardiac. Cardiac, or Dr. Ellis Wertham, is a doctor and surgeon as well as the owner and administrator of his own biological research firm. In the comics, he is driven by his brother's death at the hands of corporate greed. A cure for his brother's illness was created, but the corporation chose not to use it because it wouldn't have been profitable enough for them. This drives Ellis's vendetta against corporations. He later replaces his heart with a beta particle reactor, which supplies his whole body with energy and takes the name Cardiac. He is able to use and channel this energy, which he uses to increase his speed, agility, strength, and reflexes. He also has a vibranium weave mesh under his skin protecting him at all times. He is able to channel this energy through his body and into his power staff to send out powerful blasts. Another one of his buildings can be found on the Upper West Side. This time, however, the building is a heart hospital instead of just a clinic. Hopefully something that'll bring out in the future. In the opening of the game, we are given a slow cinematic look through Peter's apartment. As the camera moves, we see pictures, a police scanner, and what appears to be a stack of comic books on his shelf. On the very top is one of the most recognizable covers in comics, Amazing Fantasy 15, the first appearance of Spider-Man. This could have been placed here just as a simple, hey look here, but I like to think that this was a cool way of showing Spider-Man's first comic appearance and now his new video game appearance connecting the gap. On top of that, the police scanner above the books has the numbers 430062. The last two numbers, I believe, are supposed to represent the year in which Amazing Fantasy came out, 1962, with the double zeros representing the 19. I mean, Insomniac has just knocked it out of the park with this game. The amount of detail that goes into everything and the story that takes place within all these familiar characters has been something to really take in slowly instead of just speeding through and beating it. That's what she said. Okay guys, number 3 here is where there will be some spoilers for the game, so if you don't want to know anything about that, you should probably skip ahead back to number 2, or forward, or whichever way you go from 3. So, jumping back into the backpack collectibles again, you can find a failed prototype-like collectible that turns out to be a variation of Spider-Man's web fluid that didn't pan out. Peter tells us he tried to do this when Harry had his internship there, but for whatever reason, Pete has never had good luck there, and we all know why. So, first let's look at this bottle. On the bottom we can see it is category number as TASM1965-31. This is code for The Amazing Spider-Man issue 31 from 1965. This issue, titled If This Be My Destiny, is important for a few reasons. It was the first appearance of both Gwen Stacy and Harry Osborn as new students at ESU that Peter gives a cold shoulder to. This issue is also important because it has the Master Planner. The Master Planner is someone who uses thugs for his crimes to get what he wants while he sits back and makes his plans. It is revealed soon after that the Master Planner is actually Dr. Octopus. He was using this alias and thugs to gain experimental substances to expand his mastery of the atomic sciences. Peter is able to stop his master plan and ends up saving Aunt May's life in the process because she was dying from something. Again, she's like 90. This silk is significant because of the dual identity Doc Ock uses in the comics to further his plans along. The same can be said for this game with how Otto slowly becomes unhinged as the story progresses, uses others for his own ends, and lies to those closest to him until he is too far gone to come back. Also, the silk comes from Oscorp, possibly alluding to Norman and Otto butting heads with Peter and Spider-Man stuck in the middle of two people he used to think friends. One more important thing in the comic that I mentioned and relates to the story is Aunt May's health. In the comics, she is close to death and needs a specific chemical to help cure her, which the Master Planner has stolen. Spider-Man goes to get it, which he does to save May's life, similar to how the game is. It's just pretty cool to see some of the parallels the developers pulled out to tie their story together with old comic history and then sprinkle in some random items and hide it all behind some letters and numbers. This Easter egg is another one that can be found in the backpack collectibles. This time you want to find a book called Work/Life Balance for Idiots. This book is written by Dr. Ludwig Reinhardt, one of the aliases of Quentin Beck. Mysterio. In the comics, this alias is used as a world-renowned psychiatrist, and Mysterio uses his tech and hypnosis to try and make Spider-Man lose his mind. He almost gets Spider-Man to unmask himself, but Spidey is saved at the last moment by J. Jonah Jameson, and he is able to defeat Mysterio and send him back to jail. This book reference is a cool mention for Beck, but was a harder one to find. The back of the book also has a photo of Dr. Ludwig, but knowing Beck, chances are this is just another illusion of Mysterio's and not his real face. Because he is old as shit. During the start of the game, when you are making your way through Fisk Tower, you have to go through a few elevator shafts and vents. Eventually you will drop out onto a floor where the police are fighting Fisk's men. After you have cleared them all out, you are able to make your way around the floor and into the corner offices that have their doors open. If you make your way in there, you can find a couple magazines lying on a waiting table. One of these magazines is called Kingsley. and it's a fashion magazine. This is a direct reference to Robert Kingsley, the original Hobgoblin. Kingsley originally was a fashion designer and billionaire who had a criminal underworld connection and made most of his wealth through unethical business practices and corporate raiding. Kingsley originally wanted to protect himself and his wealth by gaining more power. So one day, a thug named George Hill tells Kingsley about a secret lair he found of Norman Osborn's. Seeing this for what it was, Kingsley kills Hill so he can protect the secret and learns all of Norman's secrets. He adopts the name Hobgoblin and starts his criminal career. Pretty badass Easter egg if I do say so myself. One hopefully alluding to something maybe in the future for this guy, because Hobgoblin's a badass. Well guys, that is all I have for you on this one. I hope you guys learned some new stuff from my ramblings. If so, sub up and wait for my next one. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.